am I right that it is pretty much a certainty that Israel is going to engage in a ground invasion of Gaza? It's just a question of when they begin.
Well, I keep seeing that, right? I keep seeing it's being delayed, it's being delayed. And then the more it's delayed, the more rubble there is. And anybody who's ever been dismounted, I've been dismounted walking around the streets of Iraq and places, it's hard to have a ground invasion when you can't walk, you can't invade, you can't drive tanks in these areas. The ground invasion will be focused on the tunnel
The
network.
tunnels, right?
That's where Hezbollah is. They'll be able to hit you from this building, go into a tunnel, and then go across to the next building and hit you again. So that's what they're thinking about. But they're also, are there hostages to be rescued, right? So I think the majority of the Americans and the foreign hostages were moved out of Gaza, a week ago, or moved either to Lebanon or moved to Syria or maybe even moved to Iraq, just to get them out of Gaza, because a living U.S. hostage is more valuable than a dead body. I don't know that they're going to do the same with the Israeli hostages, unfortunately. I think Hamas still has control of them. They're going to use them as human shields in these tunnel networks. If they are encountered by Israelis, it'll be the Israeli, hostages standing in front of a Hamas guy firing between their legs at the Israelis, just like they did in Somalia. A ground invasion, I don't think it's typical where you're going to be able to bring tanks in, but it's only going to be to look at those buildings where they're firing from, to take those buildings out. The tunnel networks is where the focus is going to be.
Right.
But we've seen the front open on the Lebanese, the Lebanon-Israeli front. We've seen the Houthis launch. We've seen the Iraqi militias start to move towards Syria and into Lebanon, so they can be part of this fight also. So again, just like the Israeli-Palestinian issue, this isn't an IDF Gaza issue. This is an IDF Gaza state, and the Lebanese, the Lebanon-Israeli front, and everything else. So it's never as simple as Israel and Hamas, Israel and Gaza, Israel and Palestine. It's Iran and Israel.
Okay, so yeah, I read an article by Edward Letvach about the ground invasion, and he, like you said, it's going to be basically exclusively focused on the tunnels. He anticipated that it will take about 2 weeks. So the tunnels, it's the sort of industrial infrastructure of the Hamas war machine. It's also, right, I think, where Hamas leaders live. They live within the tunnels as well. And I think there are also exfiltration tunnels to Egypt, I guess. And
everywhere they can get out.
Okay. And so I guess could you tell me what you understand about what Israel's aim in destroying all of these tunnels is? Like, what will the effect of that be? I imagine it is to destroy Hamas's capacity to pose a threat to Israel. I don't know to what extent they're thinking they're actually going to get the Hamas leadership this way, because one question for me in all of this is, why don't Hamas leaders just get out of Gaza now? So can you speak to some of those questions?
Absolutely. And some of those leaders may have already gotten out of Gaza, because so what's going on right now before the invasion of Gaza is to cut off those exfil tunnel exits, so that if you collapse those, you keep them all inside, right? So that's been the focus, and that's probably ongoing now. That's probably already happening, because you don't go in to have the cockroaches scatter. You seal the exits, the cordon, keep them in, and then you go in. You allow an exfil route. So right now, Israel's doing everything. Hey, listen, Egypt, you either let them come out that way because we're going to kill everything inside, or you don't. Once again, demonstrating that the Palestinians are supposed to be victims. They're supposed to die. And it's Hamas and other countries that are not treating them like Ukrainian refugees. They're not welcoming them in. They're saying, no, we don't want them. We don't want them. And Hamas is saying, you're not going anywhere. And so they're going to cut off the exfil for these tunnels, wherever they think they are. You seal those off, then they're inside. Then you starve them. That's why they're against giving them. Why are you going to give them food and water when we're trying to starve them out? If you want to give them food and water, give it to the refugees coming out on the Egyptian side. Let them all be fed and taken care of there. the international community should be saying Hamas is not letting them leave. Hamas is keeping them. They want them to die. They want them to be starved so they can use them as victims again. Feed them outside of the cordon. Because if you give them the ability to sustain themselves, Hamas is not going to give this aid to the civilians. They're going to give it to the people inside these tunnel networks that can continue to fight the Israelis, right? You starve them out, you basically do a siege.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't give them this a week into this war to sustain themselves. You can give it to them after 30 days. Somebody should say, listen, after 30 days, we're going to give you this aid. And in the meantime, you need to let everybody out because all the food and water are going to be on the Egyptian side. Okay. And there's going to be a screening process there with Israeli intel and Egyptian intel to make sure no Hamas fighters coming through. And there will still happen. Low-level fighters will still get through saying, I'm a dad, I'm a brother, I'm whatever. But the military-age males, regardless, will be separated. Mm-hmm. And they'll be screened and they'll be vetted to see who is a Hamas person, right? Hamas fighter, a Hamas terrorist. So you seal off the exits, you starve, and then you go in. So the Israelis will be able to see them before they see the Israelis in these tunnel complexes. They'll knock out the power so there's no cameras, there's no control. They'll wait out the battery level. So a GoPro, how much battery does GoPro have? How long can it last? They'll wait that out. And they've been doing that. They've been delaying it. They've been cutting off electricity. They want to exhaust their ability to see the Israelis coming, right? Mm-hmm. And then they'll see them before Hamas sees them. They'll see them in the tunnel networks before Hamas sees them. And they'll be able to see if they see hostages. Now, okay, we got Hamas down here with some civilians. They're using as shields. So they'll take another option. I also believe that, unfortunately, they do believe that these hostages will die, that Hamas will take them out regardless.
Yeah.
But that's how this operation is going to go. And the international media is going to put pressure like, 200 Israeli soldiers died in this week. How much more can this population tolerate? Like the U.S., Osama bin Laden believed if you simply killed enough Americans, they'll leave. We did when they did it in Lebanon. We did it when they did it in Somalia. We've done it the whole time, right? And 9/11 changed that. They killed 3,000 Americans, and we didn't leave. We came in force. And we stayed for 20 years, and we decimated Al Qaeda. We decimated the Taliban, only to give it back to the Taliban in Afghanistan. Also give it back to Iran, or give Iraq on a silver platter to Iran. But that's what it's going to look like. Mm-hmm. So key leaders, just like we've seen in any U.S. military operation in Iraq, the key leaders get out, right? The key leaders get out before the siege, but they keep their fighters there. You guys stay there. So the majority of the ranks inside of Gaza right now are probably at the captain equivalent level, the major equivalent level, but maybe even a colonel. But the senior people are out to fight for another day or to join Palestinian Islamic Jihad or Lebanese Hezbollah in the fight. Mm-hmm. The hostages, the Americans and the Westerners are probably already been moved out. And we should be looking at those facilitation networks and anything that is happening now that this land bridge has been secured between Iraq. So a bunch of buses took Kitab Hezbollah militants to the Syrian border. There's nothing saying that they're not coming back with hostages or not coming back with something. We need to pay attention to that. We're not. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about that. I think the president, we have about 12 U.S. hostages, 12 to 20, and we didn't hear anything about. We don't know maybe it's good that we don't know their faces because we don't want to let Hamas know that they have Americans, but we should still know the 30 dead Americans. We should see their faces. But, I think that's the way the operation is going to go, getting back to Gaza. They've already sealed off the exits, the exfil routes, the ones they can. The tunnels that go into Egypt, Sisi and Israel are tight. They're close to that. They're both against Hamas. They're both against the Muslim Brotherhood. They're both against Iran. And, but the ones that go into Lebanon, the LAF, the Lebanese Armed Forces are U.S. paid direct, we fund them, we arm them, we have advisors with them, and we haven't heard a single word on the LAF position on this whole thing.
I mean, how significant do you think the security benefit to Israel of conducting this operation in Gaza will be?
Um, I I think Israel has to do this operation to maintain its security. They
Hmm.
have to put in a deterrent strategy to maintain their security. They have to be devastating. They have to show Iran that you just lost a proxy here. You lost a proxy. Iran has Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Hamas, and it has Lebanese Hezbollah. We're going to take one of those away from you. We're going to take two of those away from you. Palestinian Islamic Jihad is going to be part of this too.